President Donald Trump welcomed Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni to the White House Thursday as she becomes the first European leader to have face-to-face talks with him since he announced and then partially suspended 20% tariffs on European exports. According to Associated Press, the visit will test her mettle as a bridge between the European Union and the United States. Meloni secured the meeting as Italy's leader, but she also has, in a sense, been knighted to represent the EU at a critical juncture in the trade war. She was in close contact with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen before the trip, and the outreach is closely coordinated, a Commission spokeswoman said.
President Trump, how confident are you, sir, you can make a trade deal with the EU? And your message to Italy, sir. Your message to Italy. Prime Minister Meloni, can you make a deal?
Have you spoken to President Xi?
Ukrainian intelligence is preparing planned strikes against enemy forces on Russian territory, which will inflict heavy losses on Russians. This was stated by the commander of the Ukrainian Armed Forces Intelligence Unit, Denis Yaroslavsky, on air at Ranok.live. He confirmed that the strike of the Ukrainian Defense Forces on Kushchina, which took place after the missile attack on Sumy, was a precisely calculated attack on the place where the largest concentration of enemy forces was recorded. Yes, indeed, a defeat was inflicted, which has now caused the Russian army in this territory great losses. And I know that now we are still preparing similar planned strikes, which you will hear about in the near future, Yaroslavsky said. He noted that the attack on Kherson region is a planned response, but it is one of the planned goals, and all planned targets are systematically destroyed. But I would not like to tie this somehow to the attack on Sumy region by Russian enemy missiles as some kind of revenge. These are strategic tasks that are constantly monitored, waited for, and in the event of the greatest accumulation of enemy forces, a defeat is inflicted, commented the commander of the reconnaissance unit of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. As reported, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the Ukrainian Defense Forces had hit the permanent deployment point of the 448th Missile Brigade of the Russian Army in Kherson region, which had launched a missile strike on Sumy on April the 13th. Units of the Unmanned Systems Forces, the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the Security Service of Ukraine, in cooperation with other components of the Defense Forces of Ukraine, attacked a number of objects in the Kherson region associated with war criminals who were involved in the missile strike on the city of Sumy on April the 13th, 2025, and other war crimes against the people of Ukraine, the statement said. The General Staff noted that the PPD of the 448th Missile Brigade of the Russian occupiers was hit and a secondary detonation of ammunition was recorded. The results of the strike are being clarified. At the same time, they assured that every Russian military unit, division, and their servicemen who carry out shelling of peaceful cities and civilians of Ukraine will be identified and will definitely receive retribution. Before that, on April the 13th, Palm Sunday, the Russian Federation struck the center of Sumy with 2 ballistic missiles. As of the evening of April the 14th, it was known that 35 people, including 2 children, were killed in this terrorist attack. 125 people were injured, including 17 children. Russian forces are once again attempting to land on the islands and establish footholds for further advances, according to Serhiy Bratchuk, spokesman for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army. In terms of combat developments, there have been no significant changes. Russian forces remain active, said Serhiy Bratchuk, spokesman for the Ukrainian Volunteer Army. The only thing is, they have slightly increased their firepower both in the Zaporizhia and Pridniprovsky, i.e. Kherson directions. The continuing terror against civilians remains a characteristic and common feature for both directions, noted Bratchuk on Espresso TV. According to a spokesperson, the Russian troops are acting mainly at the tactical level in the Zaporizhia direction. This is the area of responsibility of the 58th Combined Arms Army of the Russian occupiers. Russian paratroopers and motorized infantry units are fighting here. They are trying to regroup, in particular in the Kyiv direction. The Huliaipol direction is currently somewhat more active. Assault groups are being pulled up there to advance in certain areas. We are talking about the settlement of Mali Shabaki, Stevpov, Lobkov, where the Ukrainian forces managed to stop the enemy. However, the Russians are gradually involving a mechanized component. This has already become a characteristic feature along the entire front line, emphasized Bratchuk. Bratchuk also noted an escalation in the Dnipro direction, emphasizing that while large-scale mechanized assaults have subsided, Russian forces have shifted to intensified assault operations on the islands. According to him, the invading Russian forces are once again attempting to land and establish bridgeheads for a potential advance toward the right bank. It is obvious that this is the task they are facing. Apparently, the occupiers have received orders to speed up its implementation, as the intensity of hostilities in this area has increased. The Russians are actively using watercraft, which are being destroyed by the Ukrainian defense forces. The occupiers are also trying to land directly on the right bank. Such activity was recorded last week, in particular in the area of Sadov. Traditionally, they try to attack on the islands, but have huge problems. The problem isn't just who's in the Kremlin, but also the lack of evacuation. Many dead are left on the islands, along with the wounded, who often end up dead too. This keeps the morale of the occupying forces low, yet they're forced to keep attacking, because they're Russians, still willing to be cannon fodder, Bratchuk concluded.